Hello all. Before I start anything else, Ro, can I just reiterate to the world that you have the most luscious hair in all of existence? Thank you. Hannah, thank you so much for sharing with us those little snippets of some of your closest friends. They seem like a lovely bunch. You are surrounded by good people, which makes sense because you are good people. So, I am always up for a big old slice of friendship pie. I've always made a really big effort with all the videos I make online to include as much of my friends as possible. I love being like with an old friend or something and mentioning someone that I don't expect them to know, and then they'll be like, oh, like Adam from the friendship video, right? And I'm like, yes, that is Adam. I'm glad you're up to date. Morgan, thank you for sharing your memories of that incredible day. I have always looked back on that day as one of the best days of my life. I don't really think it would be possible for one of the four of us to have that feeling so intensely and not the others. Everything about that trip was perfect. The spontaneity of the decision to go, the weather, the music, the drive, was all so perfect. The video I made of that day remains one of my favourites ever to look back on. It reminds me of peace and it reminds me of you. There's something really special about having those types of memories with people, but especially with faraway friends. When both of you are in the same place, it's always because at least one of you has cut their daily life off to go somewhere new. So trips like that always exist in a bubble. It's the perfect environment for impulse trips and freedom and connection because it exists outside of your usual responsibilities. That was always my favourite thing about YouTube events back in the day. We'd all be in some random city just to chat and hang out and make friends, and all of the focus was solely on that. And it got me thinking about my other really unique memories with people from far away, and some who are now not so far away. Once at a gathering we'd organised in Cardiff, because they were called gatherings because they were literally just gatherings of people with a shared interest. Towards the end of the night, numbers were whittled down as people got buses and trains home, and we'd be left with what was essentially our friend group building gradually, including Matt off of this channel. It was late, it was pitch black, and we had walked around Cardiff Bay all the way towards the barrage on the outside, where there's like no residential stuff, no street lamps, a couple of TV studios and like a factory, and then right in the middle a play park that obviously at that time is completely pitch black and deserted. We had a ukulele with us, obviously, and we climbed over this fence towards the end of this little pier, and we all went out and sat on the edge of it, dangled our legs over the water and sang out towards the bay. And we ended up singing this improvised little song about the fact that we were sat in Cardiff Bay with all our friends having a nice time, and just as it got to the end we were playing the repetitive chords over and over, and we all gave each other a look like this is going to be the end, and on the last strum we all just faded out with our last line in perfect time, and it was perfect. Being young, having this new sense of complete independence with friends from all over, just looking out across the water with the reflections of everything. Luckily for me, a lot of these things are recorded because the uniqueness of someone's visit or your visit to someone kind of reminds you to make sure you capture as much as you can, because you might not get the opportunity to again. Because Morgan, that day was great, but your entire visit was just fucking lovely. Both of us were really nervous about the prospect of it being too awkward or us being boring or just not clicking. We hadn't really spoken in like 5 years, and even then it had been like group video chats mainly, but when you got here we just worked. We clicked perfectly. I felt like I'd known you my entire life. My friends loved you, you loved them. We had that incredible day at the little waterfall, and then me and you stayed up chatting like a 12-year-old sleepover with teary eyes and cups of tea into the early hours. I love you so much, and I'm really glad that I chose to previously and am able to continue documenting these things, because I don't have the best memory for this kind of stuff. Another one of my favourite videos to look back on is of a trip me and my friend Cassie took together. We'd hung out when she came to London when I was 17, but we hadn't seen each other since, and we hadn't even really chatted in years. She was visiting London again, and she'd always wanted to go to Paris and figured that as she was so close she may as well do some kind of day trip there. But the friend she was with wasn't able to go with her on that day trip. So she invited me, and I figured it would probably be our only opportunity to hang out properly, so we just went for it. Again, really nervous that because we hadn't seen each other in so long, things might be awkward. We met at a coach station in central London in the dead of night, said our hellos, and set off on this trip. And only 6 hours of actual time to do stuff in Paris, but it was perfect. We caught up, but we also kept busy by sightseeing. Early in the day, we went to the Shakespeare and Company bookshop and the little cafe attached to it. I had a really nice soup. Cassie had a coffee, I think, and we both sat in window seats, facing outwards, watching Paris at the start of this day in a really, really calm and comfortable silence for ages. The kind of comfortable silence you only really have with old friends. It was so peaceful. I really love the feeling of being the person who's visiting, leaving everything behind and letting someone else show you their entire world. You go from having someone feeling like they only really exist in your phone to seeing their hometown, their local pub, where they work, and the flat that they watch telly and hang up their washing in. When I first met Ro and her best friend in the entire world, Shane, I used to do regular trips to Ireland to visit them. They'd always pick me up from the airport in Shane's car, and I'd be sat in the back smiling out the window while they loudly sung along to Lady Gaga in the front. Shane's car didn't have an aux cable, so he had a couple of mix CDs and a pretty limited choice of songs, but certain Lady Gaga songs and certain songs from the Heathers musical really take me back to being somewhere new, that quickly became somewhere familiar. Nipping down the road for a takeaway or to the shops and afternoon walks to the best bagel shop I've ever been to. One time they were both really stressed in their final year of college and they needed some unwinding time. So I bought some colouring books, some pens, some different flavoured teas and some junk food. And we all sat on the floor in their tiny little living room, which was also Shane's room that he lived on in a bunk bed because Ireland has a huge rental crisis. We lit the fire, we did some colouring, some chatting and some comfortable silences, and it was just cosy and safe. Another nice one was a while later, Ro had come to Cardiff for a visit and it was late. We were both having a tough time for reasons that I don't quite remember, but I know that we needed a distraction. We ended up grabbing some of my skateboards. Yep. Yes, that is multiple skateboards that I own. We drove to the 24-hour Asda, picked up some cereal and then got some coffees from the Starbucks drive-thru. Then drove back around towards Cardiff Bay Barrage where there's like a mini skate park. We ate our cereal in the car, chatted, skated around a bit, and then just stayed up till the sun came up. It was exactly what we both needed, and it was one of the first mornings of the year that wasn't freezing cold. It's good to escape sometimes, and I think people who live far away and have no connection to your usual daily life are sometimes much easier to talk to. Like I've said before, I worked the Edinburgh Fringe 3 years in a row. The first year I did it, at the start of the month, I'd been through something pretty intense emotionally, and it put me in a really weird headspace. So I was in this new place, with a new job, trying to manage 15 people that I'd never met before, and I was feeling kind of lonely. But at the start of the month, I'd met someone called Ali. She was Australian, she was lovely, we worked for the same company and she just happened to be running a bar just up the hill from where mine was. We were doing basically the same job but in different venues, and we gravitated towards each other pretty quickly. A lot of the people we were around just wanted to go out and have huge nights out every single night, and I wanted to be involved in the nights out to an extent, but I just wanted to see some shows and feel something, and so did she. She got me going to so many shows I never would have thought of, including 2 one-woman plays, which turned out to be some of my favourite shows I've ever seen. On tough days, I'd visit her at her bar on my lunch break or after my shift, and I'd bring her special coffees, which were basically cocktails concealed in coffee cups. She was going through something really difficult at the time, and right from the start, both of us could just feel that we needed some kind of connection. We needed someone to talk to, but not necessarily talk to, you know? Over the month, we told each other more and more, and got really close for people who'd only met 4 weeks ago. She was exactly what I needed, and I think I was exactly what she needed. It was a bubble of trust and support, in a very weird setting. I've never seen her since, but she remains one of the most important people to my heart over the past few years, and we are gradually back in contact via Facebook. The world is getting bigger and bigger and darker, and friendship is the most lovely and beautiful thing in the whole world. Friendship is so weird. You just pick a human you've met and you're like, yep, I like this one, and then you just do stuff with them. Never thought I'd be saying that again, ironically or unironically. Was it me? Or was it Bill Murray? Or Alfie Days? We'll never know. It was me. It was me. Thank you once again for sharing this and life with me, gang. Hannah, I'm sorry that you ended up being the only person on the channel who didn't happen to appear in any of these stories. But when we met, how long did it last? Like an hour? You just briefly appeared at Cardiff Museum and then went for a coffee? Although I did rediscover these pics that I think the world deserves to see again. We're just gonna have to make a plan to hang out properly. Bye. Sitting on the dock where we are today. Everybody's having a fun old time. I look across the water, it's a damn nice view. I gotta say, guys, I'm pleased I'm spending this with you.